You wake up, grab your phone, check notifications, take a shower, get dressed appropriately for work, get stuck in traffic, complain about life, work 8 hours doing something you don't love, come home, watch Netflix, sleep, and repeat. Sound familiar? Congratulations, you've just described the life of a modern-day mental slave. But here's the scary part. You genuinely believe you're making free choices. You think you decided to wear that outfit, that you chose that job, that you chose that lifestyle. The truth is much more sinister than you might think. Michel Foucault, the French philosopher who revolutionized our understanding of power and control, spent decades studying something he called technologies of the self, the subtle mechanisms by which we are shaped into adequate subjects for society. His findings were so disturbing that many governments tried to censor his work. In Discipline and Punish, Foucault demonstrated through irrefutable historical evidence how modern power no longer needs physical chains to control us. He meticulously documented how seemingly benevolent institutions, schools, hospitals, businesses, function as veritable machines for the production of subjectivity. And here is the most shocking fact. Foucault proved that this control is so effective that the victims themselves start to monitor and punish themselves without the need for external supervision. This is not conspiracy theory. It is rigorous social science based on decades of empirical research. You are a mental slave, and you don't even know it. Foucault explains. Michel Foucault, the French philosopher who revolutionized our understanding of power and control, spent decades studying something he called technologies of the self, the subtle mechanisms by which we are shaped into adequate subjects for society. His findings were so disturbing that many governments tried to censor his work. In Discipline and Punish, Foucault demonstrated through irrefutable historical evidence how modern power no longer needs physical chains to control us. He meticulously documented how seemingly benevolent institutions, schools, hospitals, businesses, function as veritable machines for the production of subjectivity. And here is the most shocking fact. Foucault proved that this control is so effective that the victims themselves start to monitor and punish themselves without the need for external supervision. This is not conspiracy theory. It is rigorous social science based on decades of empirical research. Behavioral diagnosis. If you identify with at least 7 of the 12 behaviors below, you are a classic mental slave. You feel guilty when you're not producing. Even on weekends, you feel useless if you're not doing something useful. You judge your worth by your productivity. Your self-esteem is directly linked to how much you can deliver. You are afraid of appearing weird or different. You constantly modify your behavior to fit social expectations. You consume information that confirms your beliefs. Your social media feeds are echoes of your own opinion. You feel anxious when you don't have your phone. The mere thought of being disconnected creates physical discomfort. You work more hours than you should and convince yourself it's dedication or ambition. You buy things you don't need, especially when you're stressed or sad. You avoid uncomfortable conversations. Politics, religion, social issues are taboo. You constantly compare yourself to others, especially through social media. You have trouble relaxing. There's always something you should be doing. You reproduce speeches you have heard without questioning their origin or veracity. You feel powerless in the face of big issues and use that as an excuse not to act. If you scored 7 or higher, you are a successful product of what Foucault called the disciplinary society. Psychological mechanism. Foucault identified 3 main mechanisms through which we become mental slaves. 1. The mental panopticon. Inspired by Jeremy Bentham's prison project, Foucault demonstrated how we have internalized an inner watchman. You don't need anyone watching you to behave properly. You watch yourself. Practical example. You make your bed even when no one will see you. You dress nicely, even to go to the grocery store. You smile politely, even when you are angry. Why does this work? Because you have incorporated social norms so deeply that they have become part of your identity. You don't obey out of fear of punishment. You obey because you believe that this is who you are. 2. Normalization. Foucault showed how we are constantly measured, compared and ranked. Grades at school, evaluations at work, likes on social media. These are all systems of normalization that make us constantly seek the acceptable average. The result? You stop questioning whether these metrics make sense and start living to optimize them. Devastating example. You've probably found yourself wondering, will this photo get a lot of likes before posting something? Your behavior is being shaped by an algorithm designed to maximize users' screen time. 3. The constant confession. Foucault identified that modern society forces us to constantly confess who we are. Resumes, social media profiles, interviews, questionnaires. All are ways of making us produce truths about ourselves. The devilish trick. You believe you are expressing yourself or being authentic, when in fact, you are feeding data to control systems. Every time you answer, "What is your personality type?" you are participating in a classification system that will be used to predict and control your behavior. The consequences of mental slavery are devastating, both individually and collectively. Individual consequences. Chronic anxiety. You live in a permanent state of internal vigilance, always checking to see if you are doing it right. This creates constant stress that manifests as generalized anxiety. Functional depression. You function normally, but feel a constant existential void. You work, socialize, consume, but nothing seems to have any real meaning. Decision paralysis. You have lost the ability to make authentic decisions. All your choices are based on what others will think or what is expected of me. Alienation. You feel disconnected from yourself and others. Your relationships are superficial because you can no longer access who you really are. Collective consequences. Zombie society. Millions of people operating on autopilot, reproducing behaviors without awareness. This creates a predictable and controllable society. Illusory democracy. You believe you vote freely, but your political preferences have been shaped by algorithms, media, and educational systems. Your choice is a carefully constructed illusion. Destructive consumerism. You buy not out of necessity, but out of manipulated psychological impulses. This fuels an unsustainable economic system that destroys the planet. Intellectual conformity. You stop questioning dominant ideas. This impedes social progress and maintains obsolete power structures. The most terrible consequence. You pass this slavery on to the next generation. Your children learn, through your example, that this is how it is. The cycle continues. Foucault warned, "Discipline manufactures individuals. It is the specific technique of a power that takes individuals at the same time as objects and as instruments of its exercise. You have become simultaneously the product and the producer of your own slavery. But there is a way out." Foucault not only diagnosed the problem, he also indicated paths to liberation. He called these practices of freedom, or care of the self. Step 1. Brutal reconnaissance. Accept that you have been programmed. This is not your fault. It is the result of sophisticated control systems. But now that you know, you can begin to unprogram yourself. Practical exercise. For a week, write down all the times you do something because it's normal, or because everyone does it. You'll be shocked at how many times you do it. Step 2. Archaeology of the self. Foucault recommended an archaeology of one's own beliefs and behaviors. Where did each of your truths come from? Ask yourself, why do I believe this? Who taught me to think like this? Who does this belief serve? What would happen if I thought differently? Step 3. Disobedience practices. Start small. Disobey harmless but ingrained social norms. Wear weird clothes for a day. Eat alone in a restaurant. Talk to strangers in elevators. Question rules that have always been this way. Objective: to break the automaticity of your behaviors. Step 4. Creating new habits. Replace conditioned habits with conscious practices. Daily meditation, even 5 minutes. Critical reading. Question everything you read. Deep conversations, avoid small talk. Offline time, no devices. Step 5. Community of resistance. Find other matrix escapees. Liberation is easier when you are not alone. Create or join groups that question social norms. Practice critical thinking. Try alternative ways of living. Support each other's personal growth. Step 6. Political action. Your individual liberation must become collective action. As Foucault said, freedom is a practice. The freedom of men is never assured by the institutions and laws that are intended to guarantee it. Engage in critical education, social movements, resistance to oppressive systems, creating alternatives, the micropolitics of daily resistance. Foucault understood that power operates at the smallest levels of interaction. Your liberation is not just about grand gestures. It's about micro-resistances in everyday life. Question the common sense that everyone accepts without thinking. Challenge the normalized violence of institutions that claim to protect you. Refuse to participate in systems that diminish human dignity. When you stop automatically saying yes, sir, to authority, when you refuse to internalize shame about your desires, when you create spaces where others can question their own conditioning, you're practicing what Foucault called counter-conduct. The network effect of liberation, the technology of the self. Foucault's final insight was profound. You must become a craftsman of your own existence. This isn't narcissistic self-improvement. It's revolutionary self-creation. Develop what he called technologies of the self. Practices that allow you to transform your relationship with power, truth, and desire. Meditation, journaling, creative expression, physical discipline, not as escape mechanisms, but as tools for becoming ungovernable. The system needs you predictable, consumable, controllable. When you become genuinely unpredictable, when you start creating your own values rather than consuming prescribed ones, you become a threat to every structure that depends on your compliance. The eternal return of choice. This moment, right now, is the only moment that matters. Every second you postpone your liberation is another second you gift to the mechanisms of your own oppression. The beautiful terror of Foucault's vision. There is no final destination, no ultimate freedom to achieve. There is only the endless practice of becoming free, the continuous creation of yourself as a work of art. The final paradox. Foucault taught us that there is no true self waiting to be discovered. You are not searching for your essence. You are creating who you want to be. Freedom is not a state. It is a constant practice of resistance and creation. You can choose to remain a well-adjusted mental slave, or you can begin practicing your freedom today. The choice is yours, and for the first time in your life, it's really yours. The only way to deal with an unfree world is to become so absolutely free that your very existence is an act of rebellion. It wasn't Foucault who said this, but he would agree. Your liberation begins now or never.